Hi, I'm Cheryl from OVO Mindful Solutions. OVO comes from the Italian word meaning clear or obvious, and for me it's about demystifying mindfulness so that it can be understood, practiced, and used by anyone at any time. And this course is very different from many that you may have done, and it's based on the premise that you already know everything you need to know to lead a rich and fulfilling life. And the design of this course is not to add to that information, but to teach you how to access all the knowledge and wisdom inside of you. I once heard a definition of wisdom is to be able to, the ability to be able to take our own advice. So we all know what we should be doing, but very rarely do we often actually take our own advice. And so mindfulness can help us cut through all the complexity and noise in our head to start living a life that's truly in line with what we really value. So I welcome you to this course and encourage you to accept that it is experiential, and so that any practice of mindfulness, the more you put in, the more you're going to get out. So the OVO pause. How do we go from being mindless to mindful? And pausing is a great way to do this, just pausing and checking in with ourselves. And this pause can be done anywhere, any time of the day, and no one needs to know that you're doing it. You do it as you're walking from one place to another, perhaps when you arrive home from work before you go into the house, perhaps if you're a teacher moving from one student to the next or one classroom to the next, if for healthcare professionals, one patient to the next, in an office space, maybe one office to the next or one meeting to the next meeting. So any transition times, it's just a matter of you can do it as you're walking, you can sit down to do it, at the traffic lights. And I encourage people to start being a bit disciplined about it, because initially it won't come naturally. So I like to set an alarm on my phone, just a regular alarm, to tell me to pause. That's how important it is to me. So we've based the OVO pause around the acronym of PAUSE. So P is just pause and let the true experience you're having come in. That may sound a little bit obvious, but quite often we are in our minds remembering something that's happened in the past or something that's going to happen in the future, and we're not actually even noticing what the experience we're having in that present moment is. So just pause and let ourselves notice that. A is to accept the present moment non-judgmentally and with curiosity. Curiosity is a beautiful childlike feeling that kind of opens us up to the present moment. And then you is a reminder to observe yourself, your mind, your body, and your environment. So how's my mind? What's going on? Am my head full of thoughts? What's happening in my body? Am I hungry? Am I tired? Am I cold, hot? And the environment, what's going on around me? And then this is a lovely bit here where we sigh, because by sighing we're releasing all that stress and tension, and that exhale will naturally be followed by a deep inhale. And as we're inhaling, if we just put a lovely soft smile on our face, that will allow us to release the body's endorphins, which are the natural painkillers, which actually make us feel happier and more open to the present moment. And E is really the outcome of the pause. So we're ready now, we're mindful, we're ready to engage with clarity, a bit more balance and purpose, because we've actually arrived in the present moment, which is a wonderful feeling. So let's have a look at some of the science behind mindfulness. There's a fast-growing body of evidence supporting mindfulness. In fact, there's over 900 published studies currently. So this media story here, where Harvard unveils an MRI study proving meditation literally rebuilds the brain's grey matter in 8 weeks, this study really demonstrates that mindfulness meditation does more than just elicit the body's natural relaxation response. It also shows structural and functional changes in the brain as a result of mindfulness meditation. There is a growing demand for mindfulness in the workplace, and the reason for that is that there is some evidence that mindfulness does help reduce absenteeism, which is a huge cost to companies. It increases productivity, it is being used to improve leadership ability, and also shown to increase creativity in the workplace. Now, this study here, which was published in a leading medical journal called The Lancet, shows that meditation is as good as drugs for depression. And so this just showed people who were on antidepressants, and then they were taken, half of the group were taken off, and they did mindfulness meditation versus those that stayed on their medication. And the outcomes for both groups there showed no statistically significant difference. So I do throw in a disclaimer here. Please, if you are on antidepressants, it is very important to work with your healthcare practitioner to be weaned off those, and we do work quite closely with people's healthcare practitioners to integrate a proper mindfulness meditation program before those antidepressants are just dropped. And this here is Djokovic, who's a famous tennis player, for those of you into tennis, and he gives some anecdotal evidence here, and there's one thing that I've pulled out that says that he's done where he says here, I've done so much mindful meditation that my brain functions better automatically even when I'm not meditating. And if you follow the link to the attentional blink study, it shows that in actual fact there is some science behind his claim there, where mindfulness meditation can actually upgrade the processing speed of the brain, which is very comforting to hear. And this one here just showing that mindfulness can improve memory, verbal reasoning, and concentration. And it's just a test called the Global Reasoning Exam, where students did the test and then they were either put in a control group or they were given meditation for 8 sessions, mindfulness meditations. And the ones that did the mindfulness meditation, actually, when they resat the test, they improved. Their scores on memory and verbal reasoning and concentration improved. And these were previously thought to be untrainable parts of the test. And I think it's becoming well accepted now that if we reduce our stress, we will improve our physical health. And this just showed, this article in the Time magazine just shows that people who had natural what they call dispositional mindfulness, so you naturally were more mindful, then you would rate higher in terms of heart health. So so we're using mindfulness, is being used a lot nowadays for chronic pain and all sorts of different health conditions. So let's take a look at a definition of mindfulness. I've chosen this definition from John Kabat-Zinn, who's a retired professor of medicine from Massachusetts University, and he was instrumental in bringing mindfulness into many mainstream settings. And he defines mindfulness as paying attention in a particular way, on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmentally. So really, it's nothing to do with clearing your mind. And it's also something that we can't get wrong, because we're simply paying attention to our present moment experience. And this thing that we all find so difficult, not to judge things as good or bad, takes a lot of practice. And John Kabat-Zinn likes to say that mindfulness is simple but not easy. Mindfulness increases our awareness. So we get to see ourselves, situations, and others as they really are. As you can see in the picture here, the kitten isn't getting an accurate reflection of itself. It looks in the mirror and it sees a lion. And this is true for ourselves as well. Quite often we see ourselves differently from how we really are. And mindfulness increases our awareness so we see clearly. We see the reality of ourselves and situations. We let go of the stories we tell ourselves. Once we embody this awareness, we are best equipped to know how to act and respond in accordance with our values and what is really important to us. We start to gain some clarity despite the complexity, and it helps us navigate our way through life. We get real, we see clearly. Because as human beings, we have the tendency to sometimes catastrophize or over-dramatize things. Or we may also do the opposite, and we may silver line situations. We may think we're capable or up for more than we're actually capable of, or less in some cases. And you'll all be familiar with situations and times where you've taken on more than you can actually cope with, and this leads to stress and burnout, or sometimes perhaps we're shying away from things that we do actually have the potential to take on. So this is just such a crucial part of mindfulness, to actually start to see reality clearly. I'd like to invite you to take the time now to set an intention for your mindfulness practice. It takes a lot to get to this point, to offer yourself this time to learn mindfulness, to sign up for this course online, or perhaps you've done one of our in-person courses or planning on doing one. So just take the time now to write down why you think you need mindfulness. And this may change as your journey with mindfulness goes on, but right now, in this present moment, why do you need mindfulness? This will help make it real and help motivate you to practice mindfulness. Now we're going to do our first formal mindfulness exercise, and this is called the Noticing Thoughts exercise. And this exercise helps us become aware of the random nature of our thoughts. Our mind is to thoughts what our ears are to sounds. And thoughts are simply neural firings of the mind, of the neural matter in our mind. So start to sit comfortably in your chair with your feet flat on the floor and your back against the back of the chair in an alert but relaxed position. And then start moving your awareness or your attention to the feeling of your breath. So just following your breath all the way in and all the way out. Just noticing the body sensations involved with that breath. Maybe the rise of the abdomen or your chest on your inhale and the fall on the exhale. Just spend a few moments noticing the feeling of your breath in your body. As you're doing this, you'll notice little random thoughts will just pop up into your mind. And I invite you just to notice those thoughts, just to become aware of them. And then just to let them go, not to follow any narratives they're trying to take you on. And just returning your attention to the lovely feeling of the breath just flowing naturally in and out of your body. Another way to anchor your attention on the breath is simply by counting the breath, counting 1 on the inhale and 2 on the exhale. 1 on the inhale and 2 on the exhale. And try to match your counting to the breath rather than your breathing to your counting. Just allowing the breath to be natural, to find its own natural rhythm. Another method is to perhaps just notice the entry of the air into your body at the tip of your nostril. And then noticing it again on the exit at the tip of your nostrils. And perhaps noticing the quality of the air on the way in versus the way out. Is it warmer, cooler, faster, slower? And as you're doing this, just noticing this in and out flow of the breath. Just notice any general themes that are running through your mind. Perhaps you're trying to resist this present moment by telling yourself stories of the future or ruminating about the past. Perhaps you've got some to-do list thoughts popping into your mind, or perhaps some judging thoughts. Just notice these without judging yourself at all, just with kindness and compassion, and then moving your attention back to the lovely feeling of your breath moving in and out of your body with no effort whatsoever by you. And then just when you're ready, return your attention, your awareness to your whole body sitting in your chair. And then just opening your eyes. Now the idea of this exercise is just simply noticing and coming back to the anchor, whatever we're anchoring our attention onto. And in this particular exercise, we use the breath. But you can equally use a candle, your hands, your feet. The breath is convenient because it's always with us. And the evidence shows that all the magic happens in mindfulness simply by this being distracted and then coming back, noticing and coming back. So we're going from mindless to mindful. We're just constantly bringing ourselves back to whatever we are focusing on or anchoring our attention on. And so we're practicing this in a formal situation so that when we're in the real world and someone's talking to us and our mind wanders, we can bring it back to the conversation. When we're in a meeting and our mind wanders, we can come back to our present moment experience of the meeting. So this is incredibly powerful, And we have to practice it in this formal setting so that it becomes easy for us in our day-to-day life. A lot of people say to me, oh, I find mindfulness very difficult because I can't stop thinking. That's absolutely fine. Every time thoughts pop into your mind, you get another chance to practice coming back to wherever you're trying to anchor your attention. So your mind wanders, you bring it back. And I liken this to, if you've ever seen anyone lifting a bicep, doing a bicep curl, if they were just to hold on to the weight, they wouldn't be building the muscle. But by bringing the arm in and bending the elbow, and then letting the arm relax and straightening at the elbow, we are building the bicep muscle. Just as when our mind wanders and we bring it back, we're building what can be called the mindfulness muscle. It's as simple as it is. As John Kabat-Zinn says, it's very simple but not easy. And that's why we need practice. That's why we need to do these formal practices so that when we're in our everyday lives, mindfulness is easy. Over the years of teaching mindfulness, I've discovered that there's some everyday things that our mind does that we're totally unaware of. Some of these things are adaptations of the mind that may actually make us more mindless than mindful if we're unaware of these things. So before we go any further, let's shine some light on a few of these secrets, and I'll let you decide if they serve you well or not. The first of these secrets is that the mind likes to multitask. So, do you regularly multitask? Do you think multitasking helps you get through your workload? Let's do a quick exercise to see how well multitasking actually does serve you. So this is the first part of the exercise where we're just doing a timed writing exercise, and this is monotasking, so we're just doing one task at a time. We're just writing a sentence and then we're writing a number sequence underneath it. And I'll be calling out time increments of 10 seconds, and when you finish, just write down the next time you hear me call. So you'll have the sentence, the numbers, and a time. Ready, set, go. Ten. 20. 30. 40. And 50 seconds. So you should have your sentence and then your numbers and then your time. And now we're going to do the same thing, but this time we're going to multitask it. So we're going to switch between letters and numbers. So we're going to write M1, U2, L3. So a number and then the corresponding letter. The letter and the corresponding number. The letter and the corresponding number. So you're still writing the sentence, multitasking is a waste of time, and you're still writing the same numbers, 1 through to 26. This time you're just switching between letter, number, rather than doing one task, all the letters, and then all the numbers. So hopefully you understand that. And once again, I'll be calling out the time increments, and you just write the time closest to when you finish. So when you're ready, go. Ten seconds. 20 seconds. 30 seconds. 40 seconds. 50 seconds. 60 seconds, and I think you've got the idea. So just have a think to yourself. Did you feel more overwhelmed or less overwhelmed doing the first or the second exercise? And when you were multitasking in the second exercise, did you make any mistakes? Did you take longer? The majority of people report that when they're multitasking, both with this exercise and other ways we have of testing it, they usually take longer, feel more overwhelmed, challenged or stressed, and they often make a lot of mistakes when they're multitasking. So really we've been fooled into thinking that multitasking is serving us really well and helping us, but for the majority of people it isn't. And so we've done that exercise. You might be one of the rare people where it doesn't actually make any difference to you whether you're monotasking or multitasking. And maybe your multitasking is faster than your monotasking, but for the majority of people, multitasking may not be serving you. So I'm not suggesting that you give multitasking up altogether, but just to become more aware of when you're multitasking and the effect that it's having on you. So perhaps you'll be able to be a bit more discerning and choose when you have to multitask, and take time out of your day where you are just doing one thing at a time. And this can really help to refresh and revitalize you. So perhaps if you have to multitask all day at work, when you're cooking dinner at night or spending time with your family, is it possible just to do one thing at a time? Is it possible just to cook, just to do the dishes, just to sit and listen? It's up to you. It's your life. I'm just getting you to increase your level of self-awareness so you can make these decisions for yourself. The second secret is the mind auto-predicts. So just like our phones, as you can see in the example here, our phones take a little bit of information and then it auto-corrects or auto-predicts the rest. Our mind actually does this as well. It takes a small amount of information and builds up the rest of the story. And like our phones, our minds can get this wrong, and we need to be aware of this so we can notice it and correct it. It is actually an adaptation of the mind so that we can understand language and read books. But without awareness, it can actually lead to mindless stress. So let me give you an example of this. A while ago, someone was in one of my classes and she was looking most unhappy. She actually looked very angry about being there. And she looked as if she disagreed with everything that I was saying. I began to doubt myself and auto-predicted that she was probably going to ask for her money back and was very upset about what I was saying. And as it turned out, my auto-prediction was completely wrong. She'd suffered from stress-induced headaches, and she had one during the class, and hence the painful look on her face. She came up to me afterwards and she said, "Oh my goodness," she explained about the headaches, and she said, "This is exactly what I need just to stop this stress in my life." So just next time you notice your mind auto-predicting, just have a little bit of a laugh. You relate it to when your phone auto-predicts, and just maybe doubt your mind a little bit and think, perhaps I have got it wrong. And as Mark Twain said, I've experienced many terrible things in my life, some of which have actually happened. So do yourself a favour and be aware when your mind is auto-predicting, because by being aware of it, we can just have a laugh at ourselves and say, yeah, perhaps that might happen, perhaps it won't. Perhaps it is true, perhaps it's not. So that we don't spend all this time worrying about things that may never actually happen to us. Now, the third secret is that the mind loves autopilot. In fact, mind loves autopilot so much, we're on autopilot, the research shows, 48% of the time. And mindfulness actually helps us notice when we're on autopilot so we can get back to the present moment. So let me explain autopilot by drawing your attention to this image in front of you. You can see this lady here. She's just noticed that the pilot sitting next to her in the cockpit of the plane is actually not, in fact, the pilot at all. It's a blow-up model of the pilot. So in fact, this is what happens when we notice ourselves that we're on autopilot. We think we're in charge of our own lives, only to turn around in horror and realise that actually we haven't been present at all through our lives or throughout what we've just done. We may have maybe just had a nice cup of tea and a chocolate cake. And then we get to the end of it and notice that we haven't actually experienced any of that. And maybe we'll reach for another cup of tea and another piece of chocolate cake. And we miss so many incredible moments of our lives because we're on autopilot. We're not actually present to experience what's in front of us. Happens quite often when we're driving. Might get back and think, oh, I have no idea, I can't remember driving home. Or we might have meant to detour on the way home to pick something or somebody up, and we've just taken our usual route home and completely forgotten to pick that person up. And so mindfulness can help us to be aware of this autopilot. By pausing, by practicing our formal exercises like the noticing thoughts exercise. Because whilst maybe missing a cup of tea, we can repeat that cup of tea and that chocolate cake, but when we get to the end of our lives and we've missed half of our lives, it's a little bit harder to say, oh, sorry, I missed that, can I have another one? And so my encouragement is to remember to do the pause, to practice those formal exercises so that you can be more present in your life. And there's another study, a global study, where they chose 3,000 people globally and they text them at random times throughout the day and asked them what they were doing, what they were thinking about, and how happy they were. And it turned out that when we're thinking about what we're doing, we rate ourselves as being happier, even if that task that we're doing is taking the rubbish out. So it turns out that we actually like landing in our own lives. So this is something that is just, I think it's just so important to be aware of. So to sum it all up, the mind is a beautiful servant, but a dangerous master. And mindfulness helps us become the master rather than the servant of our mind, so that our mind starts working for us rather than against us. This communication exercise is an exercise of mindful listening, and it gives us an opportunity to observe our mind when we're relating with someone else, both as a listener and also as a speaker. So how do we do it? I've got 2 questions there. What do you love about your work or your life? And what are some of the challenges? So you'll talk, and if you can find a partner or someone to listen to you, that's fantastic. So give yourself 2 minutes to talk with the other person listening, and the person who's listening needs to listen in silence. And then you switch roles. And then you get 1 minute of just free flow conversation to discuss how you found that exercise. And here's some instructions for the listeners. When you're listening, just listen in silence. You can use expressions and eye contact, but just listen and not speak. Notice your mind's tendency to want to put silver lining on things, or perhaps dramatise or add to what you're hearing, perhaps try and fix things for the person. None of this is right or wrong. It's basically just noticing what's going on in your mind. Try to focus on what's real for the speaker. Connect with your sense of hearing. Notice your internal commentary, forming an opinion on what is being said, pre-framing what you're about to say. Be curious and focus on your sense of hearing, so you get to truly hear what the person is saying. And speakers, notice your tendency to edit what you're saying, making it better or worse, trying to seek approval perhaps from the other person. And notice how different it feels to be mindfully listened to. Our mindful awareness will build over time, and it helps us observe ourselves and others. So there's no right or wrong or any special technique in this exercise other than just checking in with our own mind and observing how our mind works when we're relating to others. Because once we know the tendencies of our own mind, just having an awareness of this helps us maybe to make the most of our tendencies. Or oftentimes we notice just when we bring things into consciousness, they organically change. So just give yourselves 2 minutes each. If you can't find someone to share with, and I know this can be a challenge for some people, just simply use those two prompts. What do you love about your work or your life? And what are some of your challenges? And just use those to journal. So 2 minutes journaling about the first prompt or question, and 2 minutes journaling about the second one. And with mindful journaling, we just put the timer on and we just continuously keep writing. And even if you can't think of something to write, just write down, I can't think of anything to write. So good luck, and just simply notice the tendency of your mind. What's going on in your mind as you're doing this exercise? So just pause your video while you do this exercise. So well done, you're at the end of session 1 of our Beginner's Mindfulness course. And I encourage you to leave a week until you do the next session. I know if you're doing it online, you can run them back to back, but it's fantastic actually just to have that week to practice and really start to get an understanding of the mindfulness topics before you move on to the next session, where we dive a bit deeper and start to look at mindfulness and our emotions. So I encourage you, if you can, to connect with an accountability buddy, ideally someone else who's doing this course at the same time as you. You might want to encourage someone else to sign up, or you might have someone else that you know who is already doing it or has already done some type of mindfulness, so that you can perhaps just check in with each other, checking that you're pausing regularly, having a laugh when you're auto-predicting, and calling each other out on multitasking if it's not serving you well, and just to start having a bit of fun and a bit of discussion around some of the mindfulness topics, I think always can help to make it real for you and start making it become part of your everyday life. I do encourage you all to try and do 10 minutes of mindfulness per day. You can use the noticing thoughts exercise that we've just run through in this course, or you can choose one routine activity. This is a popular one with many people, and focus just on that activity. When your mind wanders, bring it back. And journal what you notice. It is a great thing just to start journaling what you're noticing with your 10 minutes of mindfulness. If you choose that routine activity, let me explain a little bit more about that. That might be something as simple as whenever you're brushing your teeth, just notice the feel of the toothbrush against your gums, your teeth, the smell of the toothpaste, the sound. So paying full attention to the brushing of your teeth, not because brushing your teeth is important, but just because it is a great opportunity to focus your mind. And then you'll notice your mind will wander and you'll start thinking, and then you'll bring it back to the experience of brushing your teeth. And remember, we talked about this is how you actually build what we call the mindfulness muscle. So it's a great way. You don't have to add anything extra to your day, but you can start to really build that mindfulness muscle. And the third thing is, you can watch the videos and listen to the audio exercises on our resources page at ovio.co.nz. So please make as much use as you want to those free resources. It's a great way to start broadening your understanding and experience of mindfulness. And if you follow us on Facebook, you'll get links to the various blogs and other sorts of information that we put out there.